Hi, everyone. Just getting a couple things set up here still technologically, so bear with me. Hi, Margaret. I'm so happy that you're here. Yeah, keep that chat going. I think you can just getting a couple things set up here still technologically. So, okay. Can y'all hear me still? Just give me a little thumbs up if you can hear me. Karen, hi. Thank you. Great. Janet, yay. Ren, thank you. All these lovely souls. Nikki, hi. Emily, hi. Terry, welcome. Great to see so many people already on this call. This is a topic that is so near and dear to my heart. It's something that I literally have spent the last 25 years studying. And so, gosh, I'm really excited to dive into some of this content with you and love to have this chat. So I'm watching the chat box, but once I really dive in and start into my content, I often lose it. I can't watch the chat box. And those of you who know me well, I'm the first to admit I'm really bad at doing multiple things at one time. And so Sean is my assistant, one of my assistants is to the right of me. And so he's going to be watching the chat. Can you get it? Yeah. You just have to put, yeah, you're going to need to look in yours and put in that number. Okay. Okay. Alyssa, so great that you're here. So we already have 50 people on this. So I know it's a topic that many of us need to discuss, talk about, sit with, live into. This idea that our mind and our body are intricately connected and we can't separate them. So when we are working with a physical diagnosis, a physical illness, there are definitely emotional, psychological pieces to it. And often we're really scared to look at it because we believe it means it's going to be our fault, that somehow we caused it. So really want to just start our discussion today by saying there are many factors that go into illness, but psychology, emotions, thoughts, experiences, traumas are all a part of it. And when we can really find the courage to look at all of it from a place of non-judgment and realize we didn't cause this, but if we know what aspects of our illness are maybe a part of our mindset, we then have a lot of agency to start to shift things. So I hope today is a really enlightening, encouraging, empowering conversation that we're going to have today. So let me pull up my slides because you know I love slides, right? I love the slides. All right. And can y'all still, just a second, I got to make sure that I am okay. Just a minute here. Can you all still see me? Pin, I'm going to pin myself. Cancel. Okay, you can all still see me. Is that true? Okay. And so now we're going to push play on this. Okay, I think we got it. Sean, I think what we need to do is hide. There we go. We got it. Phew. All right, so we're going to dive into the body speaking. What's it trying to say? And all of us, every single one of us on the call has dealt with physical things in the body, and it has a message for us. The hardest part is decoding it, understanding it, accepting it, continuing to be in conversation with it, and most of all, not hiding from it. Because again, I think we have a lot of fear of what the body might say to us, so we just avoid. So again, I want to really encourage all of us to be in such communion and connection with our body, because I do believe it's actually one of the wisest aspects of who we are. So Most of you know who I am. I always put this slide in because we do get some people here that maybe are just finding this content for the first time. My mission definitely is to be a bridge between these two disciplines that I've spent so long studying, psychology and yoga. I feel like when we bring them together, there's a synergy and there's just an expanded awareness when we both attend to the body, the mind, the energy, the breath. All of it together helps us understand ourselves at a deeper level. I have a lot going on right now, and I'd love to have you be a part of as much of it as resonates with you. We do this Wisdom Wednesday, the first Wednesday of every month. I apologize, I missed the last two because of travel, but I'm back. So we'll be back again with you in August as well. Always free online Saturday yoga, which you can find at heartlandyoga.com or dryogamama.com. I have a podcast that I do with a dear colleague of mine, Tend Her Wild. We're talking about how women can sort of find their essence and rewild again. We talk to amazing guests. There's a big program starting this Monday, the 11th, called Tend Her. And we started it last year. It's free to residents in the state of Iowa for the first 1,000 women. I think we're at about 700. So if you haven't signed up, go to dryogamama.com/tend-her-2. And then we have a retreat coming up. So the team of women that are helping me with Tend Her 2.0, we're going to do a urban renewal retreat in downtown Iowa City. It's going to be 3 days of yoga and content and connection. So if that's something you're curious about, stay tuned. There's information coming. So this is what we're doing today. We're going to talk about the body as the temple of the soul. We're going to talk about a big insight that has come to me very powerfully in the last year about how we have to just keep everything moving through the body. When things get stuck, this is when we suffer. This is when we feel depressed. This is when we get physical illness. So this idea of how do we keep how do we keep life constantly flowing through the body? We are going to go a little bit into science because that's how I'm trained. And I think it's really important for us to understand some of the science behind mind-body medicine. We're going to talk if we are sick or we've been sick or we have a condition, what's it mean, right? Is there meaning behind it? And how do we understand this? And then last but not least, I think we have to talk about guilt, because just being in clinical practice for almost 20 years now, my focus has always been working with people who have physical illness. This always comes up, right? Like, well, I feel guilty that I have this diagnosis. Did I cause this? And so sort of unpacking some of that and realizing when we work with this model of mind body, it's not to make us feel bad about ourselves, but rather it's to empower ourselves. So just a little bit of background on sort of how I got to this place. I in college thought I would go into medicine. I was pre-med and instead chose to focus in on psychology. I was really curious about the mind part of everything, but chose graduate programs and graduate internships and all of that focused on health psychology. So, my master's thesis was with oncology and my dissertation was on chronic pain. And so I've always been very curious about chronic conditions and the psychological, emotional piece of it. But despite all of that training, I realized there was a real, something wasn't connecting. Like I wanted to help people get into their bodies and work with their bodies as a way to heal, and yet my training hadn't taught me how to do that. So then I went on this other sort of hero's quest of studying yoga and traveling, meeting all kinds of different teachers and shamans and energy workers to help me understand how to really help people land in their bodies. So this is where I'm coming from today, is really the interconnectivity of psychological science with this more ancient, deep, 5,000-year-old tradition of yoga. And so what the yogis say is that our physical body, which you can touch right now, it is not only the temple for our soul. And the yogis would say our soul is very big. Our soul is actually bigger than our body. So not our full soul is not even in this body because it's too limited. The body is very limited. So part of our soul is in this body, but another part of our soul is beyond the body. But the body is the temple right now for our soul. And the body is also the means by which we can go in and find our core, find our essence, find out who we are. So only by first attending to our bodies, taking care of our bodies, listening to our bodies, feeding our bodies, sleeping our bodies, can we wish to accomplish anything in our spiritual life. So if we want to be on a path of growth and evolution and enlightenment, we have to deal with the body, right? It is the gateway in. In fact, I often call it, it's the portal in, right? If we want to go to these higher states of mind, we can't get there without first dealing and listening and being in communication and relationship to our body. So why is the body the place we start? I have met a lot of amazing people on my journey, and I've been around a lot of very spiritual seekers, right? All these yoga retreats and trainings I've gone on. And it's very interesting. I can often feel the ones who are not in their bodies. Like they're up here totally drinking up sort of the spiritual energy, but they're not in their bodies. And we need them both. Like we need to be so grounded and steadfast in our bodies. We need to be rooted in our bodies so that we can actually then expand up into these higher states. But it's really easy to go into the higher states without any grounding, but it's not helpful actually. So we need both. So the reason the body is where we have to start, it's accessible. I mean, we can touch it, we can see when it's unbalanced often. There's actually medical tests that can measure and look at our physiology. It's very accessible. It's also very wise. Our body contains a lot of wisdom. And in fact, we can sort of think about like the Rosetta Stone, if we know how to read the body, if we know how to listen to the body is a record of our entire life that we've lived up until this point. So every injury, every trauma, every interaction, every emotion, it's all still in the body. It's still contained into the body. And so the body has been sometimes called this multilingual being. It's got so many languages it speaks, but it remembers everything. Remembers everything that ever happened and has happened to us. It's all in there. So the body holds our life. It holds sort of the history of our life. The body is also super incapable of lying. It just can't lie, which is why for me in the work I do with people, I almost always prefer to work with the body over the mind. Now I know that they're still interconnected and they're really not separate. So there's a bit of a language barrier here. But the mind, our mental state, our thoughts definitely can lie to us and can take us down the wrong path. Our mind can convince us of anything, right? You can convince yourself of whatever situation you're in that's not really serving you with, intellectualizing it, thinking it through, convincing yourself. But the body, it can't, if we're in a situation that does not serve the body will let you know. It will tense up, it will clench, it will feel sick, it will feel nauseated, it will shut down, right? So if we are in our bodies, listening to our bodies, it's always telling us whether this situation is beneficial or maybe harmful to us. So even in my private practice, I'll have someone sitting on my couch over here and they'll be stuck up in their head, which is really common. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm just going to come out with this. My profession is very head heavy, neck up, right? Let's talk about it. Let's think about it. Let's examine it. Let's look at it from another angle. And I got kind of tired with that actually pretty early in my profession because I knew there's all this stuff in the body. How come we can't access the body? So if I see someone spinning in their mind, I mean, I love to get in there and spin along, but I know it's not helpful. And so instead, what I'll often do is say like, okay, I hear where you're at. Let's pause a minute, close your eyes. Let's just go down into the body. So I'll guide them into the body and we'll get grounded and feel our feet and feel our pelvis and take a couple breaths to relax the tension in the body. And then I'll ask them whatever we were talking about. Now, can you feel in your body that conversation where we were just having? Can you feel where that's landed in your body? Are you noticing if there's places of tension? And we'll start to then work with that tension. Can you soften there? What does this body want to tell you? This tight part that's upset with your partner? Like, what is it? Is there anything it wants to tell you? So we'll work in the body, we'll come out, people like be like, whoa, I feel totally different. Like something just shifted, right? So the body consistently will give us truth and will help us really see what's going on. Whereas if we just stay in the mind, it often is incomplete. It's not always wrong. Our minds are beautiful. I spent my whole life studying the mind. I love my mind. I love my intellect, but I also know that it's limited, as is just listening to the body is limited. We need to like really connect and bring the two together. And then last but not least, our body is self-healing, right? If you cut your finger, it heals itself. If you break your bone, the bone knits itself back together. Cells are constantly regenerating, replicating. So the body is self-healing. We often just have to figure out how to get out of its way and how to create an optimal setting or situation for the body to really settle into deep healing. And I know even just these week-long retreats that I teach that are just 7 days, but we are in a space of connection. We create a lot of ground rules about how we treat one another. We really stay away from gossip and negativity. We eat organic meals. We're usually in a lovely setting. And in just 7 days, people are like, wow, my body feels so good. And this is exactly right. Your body does feel so good. Your body, if we can set up a situation where your body can really heal, it wants to heal. This is the focus of the body. It wants to stay alive. So the main problem, if I could boil it down to the main problem, is that things get stuck in our bodies, right? And what are the things that get stuck in the body? Well, certainly, like if we just start at a physiological level, certain foods that are not good for us, toxins like alcohol, even certain, environmental toxins, right? All of that can really lodge in the tissues of our body. But more than that, emotions, thoughts, feelings, traumas, all stored in the body, right? And so we start to build up, especially as we keep aging, we start to build up these pockets of resistance and tightness and armor and hardness. And these pockets then trap more emotion and memory and thoughts. It's like all the uncomfortable stuff we never want to look at. It's stored in there, right? And we're all such good stuffers. We're so good at just like, don't want to deal with that right now. Don't have the time to deal with that right now. Don't know how to deal with that right now. Don't even know where to begin with that right now. These are all really common setups, and I've been there so many times. So we ignore it, and the body can hold it. That's the amazing thing. The body can hold all of it. But what I notice is that as we keep aging, there comes a point where we have pushed so much down that the body can't hold it all anymore. So it starts to bubble up, or it starts to come out as some physical health condition or chronic headaches or some depression. It just starts to work its way up, because I also think we're maybe at a stage where we could look at or work with it better. So we have all these stuck things, and the yogis, this image here, I see it's a little bit, it's not super clear, but it shows you the yogis would say, and this is ancient, this is coming from a very old text that's even, I think it's like 2000, might even be BC. They talk about there's these stuck energy centers called grunties. And so there's a couple areas of the body where we especially get stuck. This Brahma Granthi is the pelvis. So this is when we have pain in the low back and the hips and the SI joint, and even the root chakra would go down into the legs and the knees and the feet. And this Brahma Granthi is about survival. It's about safety. It's about security. It's about feeling like we are in a safe enough place to take action. And so if we are stuck, if we don't feel safe, if we don't feel supported, if we don't feel like we can take action in the world, we often get stuck energy in this part of the body. And it can look like pain. It can look like lethargy. It can look like negativity. It can just be like, I'm stuck. I can't make changes. I know I need to make changes in my life, but I can't do it. The Vishnu Grunti lives more in the heart, the shoulders, the upper back area of the body. And Vishnu Grunti is about our connections. So if we're really challenged with connections to others, connections even with ourself, attachment issues, right? They can start to land and show up as pain and tension in this sort of upper carriage of the body, the heart, the shoulders, even down the arms a little bit. Then we have Rudra Grunti, which is sort of up in face, jaw, even down into the neck. And this is really about our lack of connection, our challenge connecting with our higher self. So we're so stuck in the small boxes that we've been trained to stay in, and the ego self and who we believe we are, who we've been told we are, that it's very hard for us to stay or open to this connection that we have a higher self, we have a wise self, we have a sort of, we can transcend these small roles that we've placed ourselves in and be in a much more expansive state. But we can fight with that, and then all the tension and the stuckness and the resistance shows up in our head and our throat. So I really like this model because it boils it down. And that's not to say you might not have some tension in other parts of the body. One of my teachers says we literally carry hundreds of pockets of resistance in our body. And I can name you mine right now. And I would love for some of you to put in the chat where you already know where you're constricted. Mine is my SI joint. Mine is my right knee. Mine is this little area around my right shoulder blade. Mine is my right back of my rib cage. Do you notice it's all on the right side? I'll explain that a little bit better, right? So I know that's where I'm carrying that's where I'm holding. That's where I'm like, just this resistance is stuck in my body. So people are saying neck, hips, IT band, shoulders. Yep. That's Vishnu Grunti. Hips, that's Brahma Grunti. Neck, that's Rudra Grunti, right? So you can see already low back, left shoulder, belly, left shoulder blade. Yeah, you guys aren't alone, right? Here we all are saying, yep, I'm stuck. I don't know what your HRSSF is, Kathy, but that sounds really interesting. The left side. So Alina is holding all of it on her left side. I'm holding it all on my right side. So we're going to talk about that, Alina, what that can mean in a little bit as we get going. So yeah, so everyone in your head. Yeah. Oh, your head. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into this a little bit deeper, but I just want us to know that we're all constricted, right? And this is how it should be for us. We should be this free-flowing river of energy. Life comes through, it flows through us, and it just keeps flowing. So we're just staying in the flow of life. Nothing sort of stops us up too much. We have a free body, and things are just flowing. You see this early on in children. Right? A kid has an emotion. They don't stuff the emotion early on. They let it go. And that emotion flows through them. And then pretty soon they're over it and they're, back to hugging you. Right? So this is how we're designed to be, but we get all constricted and stuck by traumas, by horrible things that happen, by emotions that we don't allow ourselves to feel. It just keeps creating these stuck patterns in the body. So my big insight, I have been on quite a journey for myself in these last 6 to 12 months. And I've been studying at a much deeper sort of energetic level with a teacher and really receiving such clear guidance that our work in this lifetime is to just keep moving things through, right? To not get stuck in the stories, to not get stuck in the emotion, to feel the emotion, to feel the challenge, to feel the heartbreak, but to not suffer. When we hold all that, we just suffer. So I've been seeing that bad things are going to happen to all of us. Good things are going to happen to all of us. But instead of clinging to it, holding to it, we have to learn to just let it all flow through. Yeah, when something good happens, I want to stay in there and I want to replay it in my mind and I want to imagine it. And move it through, Betsy. Present moment, what's happening right now? Can you be in that? Something heartbreaking happens. I could still be feeling it 3 days later, right? Well, no, move it through. So there's this feeling of how can we just keep flowing life through, being in the moment, not letting things really stick. But this means we have to start to clear out all of our grunties and our stuck points, because unless we clear out that stuff, it doesn't matter how much we have the mindset of, I'm just going to be a non-attachment in the present moment. That stuck left shoulder, something happens, you see something, it's all about the heart, it's about this connection to others, boom, your left shoulder starts to feel it again. So part of our work is to keep clearing out the stuckness. All right, so this is, I want to share a little bit about just personally how much I ignored my mind-body connection, despite having gone to graduate school and studied all of this. So it was my wake-up call that if I can be in ignorance of the mind-body connection with all of my understanding of it, anyone and everyone can be disconnected from the power of the mind and the body. So these pictures are from about 9 years ago. And the top picture, I had been on a biking trip with my parents and my family, my 3 young children who were about like 2, maybe, yeah, Greta's about 2, 5, and 8. We had friends with us from the Netherlands. It was a big group, about 40 of us, and we would bike across the Netherlands, and then we would stay on this boat at night, and then we'd bike again the next day. And they weren't hard bikes. I mean, if you've been to Holland and there's no hills, it's like all flat. This wasn't like a, training, you had to train for this. But I was so exhausted on this trip. I remember internally thinking to myself, like, my mother is like 65, 68, and she is like riding circles around me. Like, what is wrong? Like, I remember, like, I didn't speak it to anyone, but like, what's wrong? And I just pulled this picture up of me with my sweet little Greta, who had a really horrible haircut I'm looking at right now. And I can see in my eyes how puffy my eyes were, how tired my eyes were. There's something, and I can look in this picture and see that something was going on. So I get back from this trip and I do go into a doctor and I start to do this testing. And what we find is that I had all these elevated numbers that were suggesting I had all this inflammation in my body, that I was having clearly some big autoimmune thing going on, and that it didn't really fit into any category, but it looked like it could like really veer towards becoming a big problem. And so I started, I mean, gosh, it was a good year for me to sort of dig my way out of the hole that I was in. And I had to own that there were physical things I had to do, like change my diet and give up gluten and give up dairy. But I also really had to attend to my mind, that I wasn't speaking truth. So I'd had like 8 bouts of strep throat, and I just couldn't clear it. Like, I'd get done with one and then another bout would come over and over. And so my body was really fighting, and clearly there was a lot that I wasn't saying. And now, having done so much work on myself in these last 8 years, I fully understand that I was carrying this storyline that I had to be quiet. I had to keep my mouth shut. I was holding on to a lot of stuff. I didn't feel safe expressing my feelings. So I just kept pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing down. My tonsils were like, they were really upset with me. This picture on the left, I started to do restorative yoga. I started to meditate every day. I started psychotherapy. I started dream work. I started to slow myself down. I lessened how I was working. I changed a lot. And I've written about this in lots of different places on my website, but it was my wake up call that my mind and body were like not at all communicating. So despite having this PhD in psychology, didn't make a difference because I was not listening. And I can see I was not listening for lots of reasons. I wasn't listening because I was so busy. I had 3 kids. I was burning the candle at both ends, but I wasn't listening because I didn't want to hear it. There was some hard stuff that I had to face in the years to come, that I had to look at, that I had to own, that I had to take action on. That's the worst part. You start to know it and you're like, oh man, now I'm going to have to take some action on this. And I was not at a point yet at 39 where I wanted to look at any of that, right? But my body was like, oh, no, Betsy, you do have to look at this. You do have to start to deal with this, or things are going to get worse. So I do believe I probably could have put all of this on the back burner for another year or two, but then most likely I would have gone into really full autoimmune problems. And I've learned studying autoimmune that it's the body attacking itself. I was so mad at myself for so many years. No wonder my body's attacking myself. I did not have a loving, kind, compassionate connection with myself. My connection was one of drive and ambition and just keep going and just you can do it and don't rest and work a little harder. And my body was like, mm-mm. So I bow every day to my wise body that really gave me this big, big, big wake up call. So let's go back and talk about, what is this mind body connection? How do we listen to it? What's it mean? And this goes way back before modern medicine, right? This text is from 5th century BC. And the text says, truly, the physical body in which we live in this life is the embodied self of the former mental body. So essentially what this means is the body you're living in today is based on the thoughts you've had in the past. So our mind is a big part of where our body is in the here and now. Now, this can be terrifying to us, right? It can be terrifying, like, oh my gosh, I've been so negative. I have caused my illness. And instead, remember, we're looking this as an empowerment. We do need to start to watch our thoughts. We do need to acknowledge our thinking patterns, our mental states, because they do impact us and they do impact the body. And they knew this long before modern science is now verifying, yeah, it's true. The body and mind are connected. This is a Native American healer, Sun Bear. I love this quote. The most common blocks are the negative attitudes that a lot of people carry around all the time. In order to become healed, a person has to throw out hatred, envy, jealousy, and other destructive attitudes and feelings. Although such factors start within the mind, they quickly manifest in the body, becoming a stiff shoulder, a sluggish liver, cancer, or other illnesses. I believe all genuine healing addresses the problem of unblocking negative in one way or another, right? So here again, we're holding stuff, we're holding things in our body, and all genuine healing helps us unblock, helps us flow it through, helps us release it and let it go. So now let's get into the science a little bit of this, because I love that there's beautiful science and it's happening more and more. There's a National Institute of Health has a mind-body component to it now. There's grant money. There's people studying this. There's people studying meditation and yoga. It's really happening. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. And what I'm sharing is very basic today, but I do want you to know there's some really beautiful science that's out there. And the first thing we know, and this is not a surprise to any of you on this call, that stress is a major player in the development of all disease. It impacts our hormonal systems, it impacts our immune system, it impacts our digestive systems, our intestinal organs. And so we do know that long-term stress downregulates the healthy expression of our genes. And the hormones of stress cause our brain to fire in very disordered and incoherent patterns, which then in turn makes our body have a harder time acting in a way that it can self-heal, that it can be in a healthy place. Because when we're in stress, we're trying to control our life, we're trying to predict our life, we're trying to feel safe in our life because we don't feel safe because we're so overwhelmed and stressed. And then the brain starts, firing in incoherent patterns, and the body's like, I can't heal right now. I can't be in a place of homeostasis. There's also some really fascinating research about when there's traumatic life events. There's been some studies in New York about people and the development of chronic illness, and that when they look into trauma, they will often see that there was a trauma about 2 years prior to the onset of physical illness. And this makes some sense in terms of what we were just talking about with that ancient philosophy, that a trauma can happen, but because the body's the densest aspect of us, it doesn't settle into the physical body until sometime later. So one of the reasons I wrote for another grant for this Tend Her program this year, last year we did it, we knew women were in a lot of upheaval because of pandemic, but because of my awareness of this research that often trauma, we've even seen there's been some research with 9/11 and how things show up down the road for people who've been in some kind of a traumatic experience, that it doesn't, the physical symptoms don't show up right away. They show up down the road. 6 months to 2 years seems to be sort of the time frame. And so I know we're coming out of pandemic, but what I'm very aware of at working in the realms that I do is that we may start to see more physical health problems or mental health problems. We know mental health problems have skyrocketed since pandemic, but we, once we get through the trauma, there's like an aftermath that happens that we want to be really aware of. So stress is such a huge part of it. And we also all know ways to manage our stress. Stress is always going to be a part of life. It's not all bad. It's just a part of life. But working with our stress levels is so key in protecting our physical well-being and our mental well-being. Genes, let's talk about genes for a moment, because there is a lot of belief out there that if you have poor genetics, right? Like my whole family had heart disease or my whole family had cancer, that it just is for sure set up for us to have that same disease. And really 90% of disease is due to environment. So genes don't create the disease, but the environment, if you're in a toxic environment, it can signal the gene to then turn on the pathways to create that disease. And so we know that just because you have genetics doesn't mean that you're going to get it. Again, it goes back to sort of environment and stress. Which is why we have to be so conscious about how we're setting up our lives, the stress we're under, the foods we're eating, the people we're surrounding ourselves with. This is all such a huge part of being healthy. And then last but not least, repression. Repression really is a mind-body minefield. There are multiple studies looking at, in fact, one of the studies that I recently read was of women who were unhappily married and they did not express their emotions. They had a greatly increased risk of death as compared to similarly unhappy women who did not repress their feelings, right? There's also a lot of studies done with something called the ACE, the Adverse Childhood Experience. So looking at children who went through adverse experience, traumatic experiences. And there's a lot of well-documented work looking at poor health later in life because of these early adverse childhood experiences. So the deal with repression, and again, I want to honor that we all do it. So I'm not giving you this data as a way to make you more anxious. I'm giving you all this data as a form of empowerment. Every single one of us represses our emotions. I have been a huge repressor of emotions in my life because I wanted to be good. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to put on that smiley face, right? So we all learn to repress. We all learn to push down. And again, there are moments in our life where we actually don't have the bandwidth to really deal with that emotion. And so repression can be useful at that time. Like, I can't deal with this right now. I've got to put this down for a while, but it's still there. So you have to come around to it again at some point in your life and face it and work with it. So, oh, this is such an interesting question that I'm just catching, Margaret. Thank you for this wise insight. And I don't know how to answer it, but it says, do you think the recent shootings and such are 2 years out of pandemic? I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that we still are really living in nervous systems that are dysregulated because of all we've been through. And because of, the unrest that continues to permeate through our culture. And I really am a believer. Every time I have a client in my office and we're talking about some physical diagnosis that they're managing, I always ask, tell me about your last couple of years, what's been going on. So I am a believer that like our bodies sort of step up during a big intense moment, pressure, stressor, and they really work super efficiently and helpful, are very helpful. And then as the stressors, the pressures, the event goes away, then the body is trying to like recalibrate itself. And sometimes that's when some of the symptoms can start to arrive. So I don't know. I don't know. I hope somebody does some research on this. But I do know that as conscious humans, all of you on this call, it's really important for us to be working with ourselves and be setting ourselves up in our nervous systems and working with our health and our well-being and our mental well-being, our physical well-being, because if we are in a healthy space, our presence permeates and goes out into the culture. So there's a lot of people that aren't ready to be conscious, aren't ready to do this work to really examine and work with your own health. So if you're on this call and you are one of those people that are, yes, I want to keep evolving, I want to keep growing, I want to keep taking care of myself, I just say, bless you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We need people who are willing to grow and be conscious, because then that permeates out. One of my teachers has said, we do not need all 6 billion people on this planet to awaken. We don't need everyone to wake up. We just need a small percentage that is enough people to create a tipping point so that our planet moves towards more health, moves towards more balance, because we see everywhere our culture, our country, it's way out of whack. It's way out of balance. How do we get it back into balance? We start here. We get ourselves into balance. I mean, I really think that's so important. Clearly, I have some passion around this. All right, so this is the black box. Have you ever seen a black box from an airplane? It's not black, it's orange. Who knew? But I do want you to think about the body as sort of a black box. It's like it records, it's recording every experience you have, even if you forget it or you repress it down, it's still in there. No matter how far we push something down, the body is recording all of it. And so again, this isn't to scare you. This is to be like, whoa, my body has all the answers. It knows. It gives us a lot of empowerment to know that our body can truly help us. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, I've got some symptoms, I've got some stuff going on. How do I understand? How do I tap into the wisdom of my body for guidance? And so I would love for some of you to even put some things in the chat box. Again, I don't know if I'll be able to see all of it, but as I'm talking, if you have some questions, we can work through maybe some physical thing you're dealing with right now. I'm going to talk about my knees and how I've been decoding what the stuff going on in my knees is about. But hopefully this will give you a template for how to work with whatever physical body stuff is coming up for you. So when I have a client in my office or even just working on my own body, because I've always got physical stuff coming up. And now that I have become a yogi, or I've been a yogi for quite a while now, I'm really tuned into my body. So every little ache, pain, stuff going on, I'm so in touch with it. And I'm constantly trying to figure out, what does this mean? I see right now, and I have to answer this right now because I love it. Vertigo. What is vertigo trying to tell me? I'm actually going to come up with a long book list for you because I have so many books about mind-body connections. And I want to just give all of you that book list. Vertigo, my understanding of vertigo is, your world is spinning, right? So I've had several bouts of it in my life. So I try to always understand why now. And one of the more esoteric explanations that really explained a lot to me personally was that you are trying to elevate to a higher level with your thinking, with your life. Like you're trying to, we all have energetic frequencies, and you're trying to elevate to something higher, but your body isn't on board yet, right? The body is the densest part of you. So your mind, your heart, you're like, I'm going somewhere. I want to be somewhere different, but like, it's like you're up here and your body's still here. So it's like you aren't connected yet. So that perception or that explanation for vertigo really spoke to me. I don't know if it speaks to you or not, Kate, but I'll send again a big book list. Part of decoding your body is you have to keep reading, looking, asking, talking to your body, sometimes explanations I give people, they're like, yeah, that doesn't resonate at all. And I'm not offended by it, because your body knows, you're wise, And other times I'll say something and someone will be like, I think that's it. I think that's it. Right. So, okay. So I know we're getting a lot of symptoms, which I love. So, let's remember, like, frozen shoulder, heaviness in belly. You choose one, or you, Sean, I'm turning to Sean right now, look to see if there's some themes here. But let's talk just briefly about these models of understanding your body, and then we'll dive into some of your symptoms. So we first want to look at what part of the body, right? So let's say left shoulder is what I just saw. So what we want to look at is the part of your body you're dealing with hard tissue. So what I mean by that, bones or teeth, right? And if it is hard tissue, bones or teeth, it really is the core of your being. It's sort of the supportive inner framework of your body. And so this is a really deep issue, right? If it's bones or teeth, it's deep. It can often be even like more lineage stuff, right? Like it's something in the family line that you're just taking on again, right? Because it's so deep. It's the most inner sort of framework, holds our bodies up. It's really, really deep if something is affecting your hard tissue. Then we have soft tissue, which would be like your flesh, fat, muscle, organs, ligaments, nerves. That's more soft tissue. And soft tissue really correlates more with like psychological attitudes, thinking patterns, thoughts. How are you self-negating? Are you angry? Are you bitter? Are you self-destructive? Like, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? What are your attitudes like? That is more soft tissue work. Then we get into fluids, which would be blood, urine, water, lymph, right? So then we get into the fluids, and that's more your emotions. Like, so the soft tissue is thoughts. The fluids in your body are emotions, because I showed you that river, right? We want our emotions to just keep flowing. We want our blood to keep flowing through the body. So fluid issues really are issues of feelings, right? Where are your emotions stuck? Do you have a flood of emotions? Do you have a lack of emotions? Are they out of control? Are they deficient, right? So that's very basic. Think about, am I dealing with a hard tissue, soft tissue, or fluid issue? Then we want to work with the function of the part. So, I'm going to give you my knee example. So I have consistently had left and right knee issues. It's hard tissue. It's bone, right? It's very bone. I have bone spurs. This is deep core issue. And this is familial stuff. This is like deep in my family lineage. Every single person in my immediate family has had knee surgery, right? So there's stuff going on at a very deep level. What is the function of the knee? The function of the knee is to help you move forward in life, right? It's taking action. You need your knee joint to be able to move and to take action and to step out and to move into your life. So you have to look at what's the function. So someone said left frozen shoulder. With your frozen shoulder, you can't extend energy out. So the shoulder is an extension energetically of the heart. I'm getting into a little bit further down the road with the energy center, but frozen shoulder is I can't extend love. I can't literally reach out with love. I can't wrap my arms around this person. I can't show vulnerability. It's frozen, right? So we have to look at what's the function. What does the shoulder do? What does the knee do? What does the stomach do? What does the throat do, right? Like, what is the function, and how is that function being impeded somehow by this injury? Then we have the nature of the illness. So this would be, there's pain, there's infection, there is, I can't digest things, right? So we have to look at what's the nature of the illness. We want to know what side of the body it's happening on. So I shared earlier, all of my injury, all of my stuff's on my right side. Alina, I think, shared all of my stuff is on my left side, right? The right side of the body is the masculine side. And so we all have feminine energy, masculine energy. I just did a great podcast on this if you want to check it out. Masculine energy is the action, the doing, the moving forward, speaking out. It's all about light. It's about day. It's about movement, right? So for me, I've been working on this in the last 6 months. I had an out of balance masculine. I was going into competition. I was going into overworking, overdoing, over efforting. That is an imbalanced masculine. So all of my injury, my knee is because I ran 7 miles every day for a long period of time when my knees were saying, please stop, please stop, please stop. But my masculine side was just like, just keep working, keep at it, keep do it, run through the pain, right? Messed up my knees in a big way. So my balance was I wasn't in good balance with my masculine energy. The feminine energy is receptive, it's soft, it's intuitive, it's receiving in. There's a creative aspect to it. And so sometimes when people have all these injuries on the left side, it's either they're too much in their feminine or they've ignored their feminine. This is what I find even more. We live in a patriarchal culture, which means we are all really good with the masculine. We know how to overwork, overdrive, more power, more money, more stuff. Like it's just, we're swimming in masculine energy in this culture. So when you are disengaged from your soft side, your intuitive side, the side of you that's rest, the side of you that just wants to daydream and see what solution comes through in that way, most of us have shut that down. So then the left side of the body starts to get injuries like, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up, pay attention to me, right? So I find that when people have a lot of left side stuff, it's often because they've been very disconnected from that feminine energy. And again, I would go check out my podcast, Tend Her Wild, on the masculine and the feminine, because I think it'll help you understand this concept a little bit longer. And I don't like the word masculine and feminine because it makes it gender, and it's not about gender. So we could also call it like the light energy versus the dark energy, the day versus the night energy. But so much of the vernacular out there calls it masculine and feminine, which is why I use those terms, but it can be misleading. Okay, so that was side of the body. Then we have the energy center associated with the body. So there's 7 energy centers that run up the body. So wherever your pain or your issue is going on, you got to look at which energy center, which chakra does that align with. So I just heard someone say intermittent nausea. Well, nausea is sort of like a stomach issue, right? So that's a little bit second into third chakra, which is about a stuck emotion. Nausea is often like, I can't stomach something. It makes me sick to think about this. So I would ask Lori here, like, what are you having trouble stomaching? What is making you literally sick to think about or to have to deal with? Like your body is giving you the sign that this situation is really causing you to feel off balance. Then last but not least, your relationship to that body part. This is really key. So let's say someone mentioned belly issues. There might have been a moment early in your life where someone teased you because of your belly. They poked you in the belly. They're like, oh, look at that Buddha belly, right? So there might have been a whole storyline that got created around your belly. And now you are carrying so much anger, you're carrying shame, you're carrying all this crap about your belly. So your belly's like, well, I'm just not going to respond the way I designed to respond because there's so much vitriol coming at me all the time, right? This is my relationship with my knee. So I was born with my right knee, I believe, hyperextended up onto my chest. So it was instead of going the right direction, it was like flipped up on my chest. So I came out, and the story goes that my dad basically almost fainted because this beautiful baby who just came out, the leg is going the wrong direction. The doctor freaked out a little bit. They wrapped me really tight in blankets and just said, she's got a trick knee. I think it's going to be okay. Just don't let her play contact sports. So I knew from an early age that I had a bad knee, right? And even that language, it's not my parents' fault. I don't hold any anger towards them, but I had this story that I had a bad knee, right? So why do you think I've had a couple surgeries on that knee? Why do I constantly have pain in that knee? Well, I've called it bad for 47 years, right? So now I'm really, in these last couple of months, I've been kissing my knee and I've been like loving my knee and talking to my knee. It's really, actually, my pain is going down. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really true. So we have to understand our connection, the feeling we have towards those body parts. Okay. I know we're a little bit over. So those of you who have to pop off, but I just feel like we're in something really good here. So I want to address a couple of these things, a couple of these body parts, and let's just talk through briefly what it could mean. Now, it either is going to resonate with you and you're going to be like, ding, 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 or you're going to be like, yeah, I don't know, which is why when we're working with the body, we need to sort of understand. Lots of people have written about meanings that the body, meanings of illness, meanings of injury. Read that and then see, does that resonate? But then the real work is talking to the body. So I literally will hold my hands on my knees and I will have conversations. If I'm having an issue, I will try to go into that space in a meditation and pay attention and speak and ask questions. So a lot of this is deeper meditative work, which I know can be hard to do on your own. That's why having a therapist or a practitioner or someone who can guide you in to have conversation with that body part is really helpful. But you can get so far on your own, just really being in non-judgmental conversation with that body part. So Sean, do you have a couple body part areas that have shown up quite a bit that we want to talk about?
I love, Elisa brought up her throat and it gets tight, and I love
Okay.
the chakra center.
Great. Let's work with throat. So tight throat. So we're working in let's start with the part of the body. I would call this soft tissue. Right. I mean, you have, if this is a spinal thing, right, then we know it's more deeper. It's more familial. It's a really core issue. But if we're talking more like muscular stuff, or you just feel the throat constrict, that's a little bit more soft tissue, which would have to do with thoughts, like thinking, mind patterns, mental patterns. So start there. And then let's talk about what is the function of the throat. The function of the throat, well, it helps you look from side to side, right? It helps you see the world around you. From a voice perspective, you speak your truth from your throat. You express who you are. So who we are is born sort of down here in our core, but we can hide who we are. We can never let anyone see who we are, but the throat requires us to speak it, to write it, to sing it, to paint it, to let other people see who we are. That comes from the throat. The throat is also another function of the throat, is it's the narrow passageway between your heart and your head. So the heart and the head are sort of the decision-making places in our body. Like we can make a decision from our intellect, which most of us do, or we can really land in our heart and be like, my heart really wants to move to Seattle, but my head tells me it's such a bad time to move, right? Like housing prices are so high and we don't know what's going to happen the next election. So head decision versus heart decision. But my heart is like, I know, but there's just something calling me. I know it's where I need to be. So often when our heart and our head are in a war with one another, it all happens on the battleground of the throat. There's clenching, there's tightness, there's, holding, right? So I also, when anyone has throat stuff, I'm like, well, let's talk about your heart and your head and what's going on. Is there some challenge between the heart and the head? The energy center of the body is the fifth chakra, which is about speaking truth, honesty. Also, the throat chakra is about purification. So we purify through releasing breath, speaking, throwing up. It all comes up and out through our throat. There's a purification. So often when people are really struggling with throat stuff, I often want to know, like, what needs to be purified in your life, right? What heaviness, what toxins are you clinging and holding on to that your throat can't really purify, or it's trying to purify and it's overwhelmed? And then what do you think about your throat? What do you think about speaking truth? So whoever asked this question, those slides I showed early on of me and my autoimmune crisis, it was a throat issue. I had strep throat, wouldn't clear, wouldn't go away, wouldn't improve, kept coming back. And it really, truly, for me, was a thought pattern of me having been told as a child in a really traumatic event, not by my parents, not by anyone who loved me, but by the perpetrator, the person who was harming me, that I was a good girl and good girls keep their mouths shut. You don't speak up. So I had really taken that in and lived from that place. It's not safe to speak up. It's not safe to speak truth. It's not safe to say what I need to say. And it just, really created all this clenching tension. I remember even at 13, I was having neck issues, right? So it's all of this was really getting stuck here. So tension, clenching in the throat, I'd really be looking at what thought patterns are supporting that, but also what aren't you saying? What aren't you speaking? All right. Feeling of not being able to get breath, Lauren, that's more lungs, right? Which is heart. And heart is really about, connection to self, connection to others. When we're in grief, often we hold a lot of heaviness on our heart, which can then often lead to really shallow breathing as well. Okay, I could probably go on all day. Can you guys tell that I love this? This is like my total jam. It's helping people figure out what their body's saying to them. So this is the last thing I want to say, because I know we're already over. Thank you for staying on, for those of you who are still here. So the one thing working in mind-body medicine and working all these years clinically with people is that often the reason people don't want to know the connection between their body and mind is that they carry so much guilt. And I found this picture, this guy's got a Twitter account, he's dealing with chronic illness. And I was like, wow, that says it so clearly. Number one confession is that I always feel guilty. So often people are like, I don't want to even go here, because then it means I'm responsible for this illness. I'm responsible for this cancer. I'm responsible for these headaches. I'm responsible. And so, the conversation I always want to have with people around this is that illness is a whole, like, if you look deeply into this causal chain of events, and the more willing you're to explore all the different factors, the more empowerment and agency you start to get. So is it just faulty thinking that created this illness? No, but there might have been some really negative stories that are a part of this, but it's also the stress that you've been under in the last 5 years. And it's also that you do have a genetic propensity towards this disease. And because of all that stress and all that negativity that was going on, it turned on that gene. And it also might be that you live in a toxic neighborhood, or you live in a home with a bunch of toxic people. I mean, there's so many factors, but when you can start to see, oh, but, I do, the one thing we do have control over is, how we're thinking about things, our attitude about things, our perspective on things. And if I could see maybe the perspectives I've been in, and I can start to shift it to a healthier mindset, that might just help me. It might benefit my physical health. It might lessen some of the symptoms. So I just so believe that this is part of waking up. If we want to wake up and get more enlightened, we got to look at all of it. And so often we're scared to look at all of it because we don't want to feel guilty. We don't want to feel bad. We don't want to feel like it's our fault. But then we miss out on the empowerment that can come when we own all of it. We own that we are both light and dark. We are both brilliant and wounded. We are both, negative and totally positive and optimistic. We have all of these qualities in us. And so I just think our work as human beings is to own all of it, to hold all of it, the light and the dark, the good and the bad, to be with all of it, to see it, to be in relationship to it, and to move it through, right? To keep moving it through, to not let things get stuck, to keep things just flowing through the body. Okay, I think that's all I got, friends. Whew. That was a lot. I haven't felt so passionate about Wisdom Wednesday in a long time, but clearly this is something that I really love and feel so much like I want people to feel the empowerment that can come when you look at this connection between your mind and body. So this will be uploaded to the Dr. Yoga Mama YouTube channel, also be on the Heartland Yoga YouTube channel. And then I will get all of you who were registered for this. I'm going to send out the link to all of you, and I'm going to send out a book list to all of you as well. And then you can go into Amazon or go wherever you buy books, maybe buy them local from Prairie Lights if you're in Iowa City, and grab some of those books. And I think you won't regret it, especially if you're trying to figure something out. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm trying to look at the messages and there's so many. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Allison. Susanna, Seattle. Maybe that was an unconscious feeling on my part that I'm ready to get to the West Coast.
Ren wants to do.
Can we do an entire talk about moving it through? Yes, Ren, because you know that's my new thing since coming back from the jungle, my new aha. Yeah, The Body Keep the Score. Erin, that's one of my favorite books. That'll be on the book list about the mind-body connection. Stephanie, I love that you were on today. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, Sean says, that's the secret. Move it through. Good, Nancy. I'm glad you got something out of that masculine, feminine thing. And that's a big one too. Cindy, I'm glad you thought it was fascinating that I'm not the only one who geeks out on all of this stuff. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Stomach heartburn issues. Heartburn, Haley, just if you're still on, heartburn is anger. It's like anger that's just like fire, right? It's fire that's bubbling up and out. Anger is not bad. Anger is a beautiful emotion, as beautiful as love. Anger is one of the most motivating of all the emotions. We just have given it a really bad rap. So often heartburn can be just a lot of repressed anger that's never come up and out. And there are some really healthy ways to release anger that doesn't hurt anyone or yourself. So you can reach out to me and I can give you some ideas. There's something called primal therapy, which is a really beautiful form of just like really releasing anger from the system. Yeah, Rachel, subconscious healing is huge. It's all in the subconscious. The body is the unconscious, by the way. The body is the unconscious mind. So we are very in connection with our conscious mind, but the unconscious mind is the 95% of us that we're, you know, just kind of running the ship for us. The body in Jungian work, even in mind body medicine, yoga philosophy, the body is considered the unconscious mind. So if you have something going on in your left shoulder, consciously, you're like, I don't know why my left shoulder is sore, but there's something in the unconscious that's trying to get your attention. So thinking about the body as the unconscious mind can be really helpful.
One last while you're on.
Okay, one last one.
Digestion.
Yeah, digestion. Yeah, digestion really is kind of a, it's a second, third chakra issue. I'd want you to look at the organs, like, and you have to look at, like, is the digestion issue that you're constipated, which means you're often clinging to things, you're holding on to things, you can't let go of things, or is your digestion issue diarrhea? Diarrhea is like an excess of fire, and you just like, you're not getting any nourishment. It's just like all going through you. So you kind of have to look at what's the nature of the digestion. Is it stomach? Is it intestinal? To kind of understand what it's trying to say. But digestion at a bigger level is like, what am I not digesting in my life? Or what don't I want to digest? Or am I digesting too much? Is there just too much coming at me? Or am I not digesting enough, right? Like there's a lot here to work through and I'm just ignoring it. I'm turning the other way. So digestion is often helping us see like there's something that I'm not quite assimilating. It's not really, I'm not really working it through in a healthy way. I'm either holding on to it or I'm just letting it go too fast. So,
sorry, Betsy, Lauren has asked.
Oh yeah. Painful menstrual cycles. Okay, so menstrual work is definitely second chakra work. And second chakra is all about emotions, sexuality, creativity, abundance. It's the water element. So menstrual issues, um, and again, I would want more information. Is it the days leading up to your cycle? Is it a long cycle? Is it a pain? Like, what is it? But there's something painful for you about working in this second chakra. And there's a lot of research and data on sexual abuse and menstrual cycles and painful menstrual cycles. I have a book, remind me to find it, written by a physician slash yoga teacher, who it's all about hormones and this mind body connection. I can see it, but I can't think of the title, but I'll add it into the list, Lauren, for you. But it's doing anything you can start to learn and read about your second chakra can be really helpful, because there's something stuck or there's something painful. There's an imbalance clearly going on. Menstrual cycles, all cycles aren't meant to be painful. Cycles are a normal part of life. But when there's pain, kind of understanding what is off balance in my second chakra. So, and I wrote a book on the chakras. I'll put that in the book list, as well as just kind of, if you don't know anything about energy centers, it's a really good kind of pathway into the chakras. All right. Thanks, everyone. I feel quite energized. That was really fun. So thank you for being here, listening, and I'll see you all. Oh, Sean, let's get in there. Actually, I can write it right now. For those of you who would like to join, Tend Her, I'm going to put in the link right now to sign up. And if you have any out-of-state friends, they're welcome to join as well. And I'll be back the first Wednesday in August talking about something. If any of you have something you would like me to talk about, maybe Ren will do the thing about moving things through. Just what does that mean? What does that look like at an emotional, mental, physical level? That's maybe what we're going to do, but I'm open to suggestions. So let me know what you want to hear about and we'll talk about it. Okay. Have a really great afternoon. We'll see you soon. Much love to all of you.